This man never imagined how he would be outsmarted. As a very intelligent fellow, he had his plans well put together until the detective played a fast one on him. His name was Rodarte, and in the next few hours his arrogance became his downfall. Because while he thought he was playing chess, the detectives were playing an entirely different game. And by the end of this interrogation, he confessed to murder using his own words. Before we dig in, click the subscribe button so you never miss any of our documentaries. Now to the story. This was the story of how psychological warfare in an interrogation room brought justice for 21-year-old Savanna Pitre, and how a killer's ego became the key to solving his own crime. It was August 5, 2017 in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a Saturday night, and 21-year-old Savanna Pitre was getting ready to go out. Savanna wasn't just any young woman, she was the kind of person who lit up a room. Her co-workers at Bonefish Grill described her as genuinely caring, always asking about their day, always willing to cover a shift for someone in need. But Savanna had a problem. Her relationship with Rodarte, a 28-year-old manager at the restaurant, had become toxic. Friends and family had watched this relationship cycle through breakups and reconciliations for months. The age gap wasn't just in years, it was in power dynamics. He was her supervisor. He was older. And according to people close to Savanna, he was controlling. That Saturday night, Savanna told her mother she was meeting Lee to talk things through. Maybe they were getting back together. Maybe they were ending it for good. Her mother watched her daughter leave, not knowing she was seeing her for the last time. When Savanna didn't come home Sunday morning, her mother immediately knew something was wrong. Savanna always came home. She always called. By Sunday afternoon, she was reported missing to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The clock was ticking, and detectives knew that in missing person cases, the first 48 hours were critical. Detective Mike Bruno and Detective Pat Ivey caught the case. They were experienced investigators who had worked together for years, and they knew that in cases involving missing young women, you started with the boyfriend. Their first stop was Bonefish Grill. The manager pulled up the security footage from Saturday night, and what they saw changed everything. At 11:47 p.m., Savanna's car pulled into the parking lot. She parked and walked over to Rodarte's silver Honda Civic. The timestamp showed 11:52 p.m. when she got into his passenger seat. For exactly 4 minutes, nothing happened. The car sat still under the parking lot lights. Then, at 11:56 p.m., the car began to shake, not gently, violently. Like there was a struggle happening inside. The shaking continued for nearly 2 minutes. Then suddenly, it stopped. At 11:58 p.m., the driver's side door opened. Rodarte stepped out, walked around the car calmly, opened the trunk, and appeared to rearrange something inside. He got back in the car and drove away. Savanna never emerged from the vehicle. The detectives looked at each other. They didn't have a body, but they had something almost as powerful, a timeline that showed exactly when Savanna Pitre died and exactly who killed her. 2 days later, Rodarte walked into the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He wasn't in handcuffs. He hadn't been arrested. He came in voluntarily to help with the investigation. Detective Bruno studied him as he settled into the interrogation room chair. Rodarte was wearing a casual button-down shirt, jeans, and sneakers. His hair was neatly combed. He looked like he had slept well. Most people in Rodarte's situation would have been nervous. They would have been fidgeting, sweating, asking for lawyers. But Rodarte was different. He leaned back in his chair. He made eye contact. He even smiled. "I just want to help find Savanna," he said. "I cared about her." What Rodarte didn't realize was that detectives Bruno and Ivey had been studying him from the moment he walked in. They had noticed his body language. They had heard his tone. And they had made a crucial decision about how to handle this interrogation. They weren't going to be aggressive. They weren't going to yell or pound the table. Instead, they were going to let Rodarte's own arrogance hang him. Because they had dealt with killers like this before, ones who thought they were smarter than everyone else in the room. And they knew exactly how to use that arrogance against them. Detective Bruno started softly. "Lee, we know you and Savanna had a complicated relationship. Can you tell us about Saturday night?" Rodarte's story came out smooth and rehearsed. He and Savanna met in the parking lot. They talked about their relationship. She was upset, but they worked things out. Then she left to go home. "Did she drive herself?" Detective Ivey asked. "No, she walked. She said she needed air." "At midnight? In that neighborhood?" "She's done it before." The detectives exchanged a subtle glance. Rodarte didn't notice, but they were already catching him in lies. Savanna's car was still in the parking lot when police arrived. If she walked home, how did her car get there? But instead of confronting him, they leaned into his story. You must have been worried about her walking alone at night, Detective Bruno said. That shows you cared about her. Rodarte nodded eagerly. Exactly. I really cared about her. What Rodarte didn't realize was that the detectives were building a psychological profile in real time. He wanted to be seen as caring, as the good guy. He wanted control of the narrative. So they were going to give him just enough rope to hang himself with. Lee, Detective Ivey said, we're going to show you something, and we want your help understanding it. They slid a still image from the security footage across the table. It showed Savanna getting into his car. Rodarte had barely glanced at it. Yeah, that's when we talked. And after this conversation she walked home? Right. They showed him another image, his car shaking violently. What do you think was happening here, Lee? For the first time, Rodarte hesitated. His confident smile wavered for just a moment. But he recovered quickly. Maybe the wind? Or someone bumped the car? The detectives knew they had him. But they weren't done playing with him yet. Detective Bruno leaned forward slightly. Lee, we've been doing this for a long time. We've seen a lot of cases. And we know that sometimes things happen that people don't plan. What do you mean? Sometimes people have arguments. Sometimes those arguments get heated. Sometimes people make mistakes they never intended to make. Rodarte shifted in his seat for the first time. I don't know what you're getting at. We're saying that if something happened that you didn't mean to happen, we understood that. We weren't here to judge you. We just wanted to find Savanna. This was a classic interrogation technique called minimization. The detectives were giving Rodarte a psychological escape route, a way to confess without feeling like a monster. They were suggesting this might have been an accident, a moment of passion, anything less than premeditated murder. Lee, Detective Ivey added, we know you were the last person to see Savanna alive. We know she got in your car and never got out. We have it on video. The security cameras show everything. Detective Bruno continued. They show your car shaking. They show you getting out alone. They show you opening your trunk. Rodarte's breathing changed. His hands, which had been relaxed on the table, were now fidgeting. We know you didn't plan this, Detective Ivey said gently. Things got out of hand. Just tell us what happened. Rodarte started, then stopped. It's okay, Lee. We know you cared about her. Just tell us what happened. Rodarte sat in silence for nearly 30 seconds. The detectives didn't push. They let the silence do the work. Finally, he looked up. We were arguing, he said quietly. About what? About us. About our relationship. She wanted to end things permanently. I didn't want that. What happened then? She started yelling at me. Telling me I was controlling, that I was too old for her. She said some really hurtful things. And then? I snapped. I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop yelling. How did you hurt her, Lee? Another long pause. I put my hands around her neck. I just wanted her to stop talking. But she kept struggling, and I squeezed harder. And then what happened? She stopped moving. The room fell silent. After 3 days of searching, after hours of interrogation, Lee Rodarte had just confessed to strangling Savanna Pitre. But the detectives weren't done. They needed to know where her body was. Lee, Savanna's family deserves to say goodbye. Where is she? Rodarte broke down completely. The confident, smirking man who had walked into the interrogation room was gone, replaced by someone who realized the magnitude of what he had done. He told them he panicked after killing Savanna. He put her body in his trunk and drove around for hours, trying to figure out what to do. Finally, he found a wooded area off Heckscher Drive and dumped her body there. The next morning, detectives found Savanna Pitre exactly where Rodarte said she would be. The investigation that began with a missing person report ended with a murder confession, all because a killer thought he was smarter than the people trying to catch him. In 2019, Lee Rodarte pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He would be eligible for parole when he was 68 years old. The case of Lee Rodarte and Savanna Pitre was a masterclass in how experienced detectives could use psychology to solve crimes. Rodarte walked into that interrogation room, convinced he could talk his way out of murder. His arrogance, his need to control the narrative, his belief that he was the smartest person in the room, all of it became evidence against him. Detectives Bruno and Ivey never raised their voices. They never threatened him. They simply listened, watched, and gave him enough space to hang himself with his own words. Sometimes the best way to catch a killer was to let them think they were winning.